Hi, I'm Paul Thorpe, and today I'm going to be changing out a pair of wood doors on this house with a pair of fiberglass doors and show you how to do that while leaving the jamb and all the casing in the threshold. And this house is not very old, it's only maybe 6 or 7 years old, but those are wood doors and they're painted black. This is facing south, so they've gotten a lot of sun and weather and they've failed already basically. So I want to put these fiberglass doors in. And these are a really good application for this location because they'll stand up to that sun and weather and they'll stay flat. The door's not really closing, it's kind of started to warp. And there's a big gap at the top because it's literally twisting. Okay, now I'm getting ready to put my new doors into jamb to scribe them to fit. But first I've got an issue, which is that these new fiberglass doors are actually a little smaller than the old wood doors. And that's common. Fiberglass doors come undersized. So the old doors are 36 inches, or 3 feet. But if you call a 3-foot fiberglass door, it's going to be a 1/4 inch narrower, so it'll be 35 inches and 3/4. So that's what this one is, not 36 inches. And also they're an inch shorter, so if that door is 8 feet or 96 inches, this door measures an inch less, so it's 95 inches. So that's something to consider, but I want to reuse my jamb that's been sized for the wood doors. It's a little bigger, so I'm a little big, so what do? Well, I had a special astragal made. This part I just had made at a shop, and it's an inch thick. It's thicker than a typical astragal, which is about 3/4 of an inch thick, and I just stretched it. And here's my other trick. When I put on my bottom sweep, I use a 3-inch tall sweep as opposed to the typical 1 1/4 inch tall. This way I can fill in the 1-inch gap on the bottom. And then I've taped a piece of wood, 1 inch thick, the same as my astragal, onto the edge of the door so that I can have the spacer for when I scribe them, because I don't want the astragal on while I'm trying to fit them in the door. And here I just wanted to show the little shim I have taped. This represents the thickness of my new astragal, and this is a piece of 1/8 inch stock and 1/16 inch stock taped on there. It adds up to a little less than 3/16, and that's the space I want in between the doors when they're shut. Here are the bottoms of the doors set in place and ready to scribe. And you can see I've got about a 1-inch gap on the bottom of the doors because of the fiberglass doors being a little shorter, like I talked about. I kind of like these fit the way they are, but I want to scribe them perfectly, so I'm going to take just a tiny bit off of a few areas. And these doors are looking really nice already. And sometimes I just spread my fingers like that and kind of hold it while I draw the pencil down like that. So here's my astragal layout, and this is my astragal. I've pre-finished, stained on the outside, painted on the inside, and it's going to line up flush at the top like that, and then I just have a 1/2 inch notch on the top, and that's where that stop is that the door is closing against. And then on the bottom, the front of it hangs down a little farther, and because you want that closed off, because when I put my sweep on, the sweep's going to go to the bottom there of the astragal, but the front leg of it wants to kind of be the same place as the threshold, so that to close that gap. So laying out my top flush bolt, this is an extension flush bolt. It's got this rod, and that rod needs to be relieved. Normally I would notch the door, but because of my thick astragal, I actually notched the astragal, because when that thing's sitting in the door, it needs to have, that bolt needs to be able to travel. It needs a gap to slide up and down. And then on the bottom I just get the simple flush bolt, and that's going to get mortised in like that. But that's less than an inch, so I don't need to cut the door. Again, this is all just going to get buried in this thick astragal that's only about 5/8 of an inch thick. I have my astragal here clamped to the door edge, and I'm just ready to route my groove for that flush bolt extension rod. So now I'm going to route my little flush bolt in, and I nailed my astragal on with little nails, which I then puttied with white putty, and I could nail the jig on too, but I'm actually going to tape the jig on to just minimize the amount of holes I'm creating, and this two-sided tape works really well. And I'm all in position here. I just kind of line up these marks I made. Got myself centered on my door, not the astragal, but on the door behind. And a little bit of pressure, and that will really keep it on there. Now I've made my first pass, and I put a couple of little screws in my jig, and that'll stop the router, because I need to do 2 steps. And in the middle I want to make it deeper, all the way for the deepest part of it. And I'm just going to block off the jig so that my collar will stop against those screws, and I can still save these ends for where the screws go in. The flush bolt extension rod just threads in, so I can fit this first and then put this together like this. And that has to be together. You have to put it together and push it in. You can't put the rod in from the end, and you'd never be able to find that little hole there. So you got to put it together first, and then just kind of encourage the whole thing into that pocket there. And I put some tri-flow on that lever as well, because you want that to move freely for a long time, and sometimes they can get kind of stiff. Flush bolts can be really kind of finger busters if they're really stiff, so kind of lube it up now while you have the chance. And then I can see I got my guide plate on top, keeps that in place. So here my new doors are in. I've hung them, I've adjusted them to be just where I want them, and they look really good. Laying really flat, and the reveals between the doors and the jamb are looking really even. Okay, I wanted to show one little trick here, which is how to make the flush bolt tighter. You can see when I have my new strike plate in here, and when I throw that flush bolt, the door kind of wiggles in that opening, which is common. So if you want to tighten that up, a trick is to put a little screw, tuck it inside there to take up that gap. And you can literally turn this screw to the depth that you want, for however tight you want that to be. So in this case, I want to hold the bolt to the back of that hole. So I'm just going to put a little screw in, little black screw. And it just goes down below and just sort of, okay, that needs to go in further. So I'm just going to turn it and just kind of there. Now you can see that's really tight in there. And then when you shut, when the active door is shut against that, it'll be more secure feeling. Well, I'm all done with the door installation, and I think it looks really nice. The customer's really happy. The doors look really beautiful compared to the crummy black doors they had before. These look much better, and the stain and the finish on the fiberglass is really nice. I reused the old hardware, and we're laying really flat. It closes and seals up on all 4 sides. It makes that nice seal. So thanks for watching. I had a fun time doing this and showing you how to do it, so I'll see you next time.